Okay, so the first interview I'm going to do, I'm quite excited about because it's with a very good friend of mine who is an amazing drummer and sat down there ready for my question or questions. Okay, so Howard Tibble, who has worked with, well, he's Shakin' Stevens drummer. That's probably what he's most famous for. He's also worked with Cliff Richard, Meatloaf, who else? Boy George, okay. So I'm going to, and a lot of people. He's sitting in the chair, ready. Okay, so I'm going to ask him the question. So I'm here with Howard, and I'm just going to ask him. Can I ask first of all, what made you, what drew you to drumming, and what made you want to go down that route?
Well, when I was 14, a friend of mine rang me. He was going to a different school. They were forming a band and they wanted a drummer. And I didn't know what I wanted to do for a living. I just thought, this sounds like a good idea to me, so I'm going to give it a try. So I persuaded my father to buy me a drum kit. And 6 months later I left school and I've been a professional drummer ever since.
Yeah, and you've had such an amazing career. I mean, I can't believe all the people that I've just mentioned that you work with. Shakin' Stevens, who else?
Cliff Richard, Meatloaf, Boy George, Kim Wilde. I mean, not in their touring bands, but on TV and stuff like that, making records with them.
And what would you say the highlight of your career has been?
One of them, well, it's very difficult to say because every time you think that this is the highlight of my career, the day after that something else may come along which in a different way is another highlight.
Yeah.
One of the first obvious highlights is your first appearance on what was then Top of the Pops.
Yeah, I
mean,
amazing.
Playing on a #1 hit record, and every time you turn the radio on, there it is. That feeling doesn't last all that long, but it's a great highlight. Another great highlight, equally as good, was working with Phil Everly, one half of the Everly Brothers, making an album with them, and seeing Phil at one end of the studio with his Gibson Everly guitar playing, Mark Knopfler, Pete Wingfield, Stuart Coleman in the studio, and just playing some great songs and things like that, and you think, oh, life doesn't get any better than this. And then something else will come along which in its own way is, so it's difficult to put
to choose one
moment, because they're all special.
Wow.
In between all that, there's an awful lot of unspecial moments.
I have to ask you, leading on from that, the question, which is what I'm trying to discover, is, and everyone has a different opinion. So, in your opinion, what is it that would you say defines being a good drummer, and what is it that makes a good drummer?
Well, probably the biggest thing is having the luck to be born with some feel and soul, and the ability to listen to what's going on and not get in the way of it, and accompany the artist rather than trying to overshadow him.
Yeah.
That's the drummer's role, generally. Unless you were Keith Moon or somebody like that he was a star in his own right. Musicians generally aren't. They play second fiddle to the lead singer or the artist they're playing for. And they must remember that they are there to accompany them and get the very best out of the singer and the song, rather than, like I say, trying to take it over.
And leading on from that, who are your favourite drummers?
Well, there's a number of them. Terry Bozzio is my favourite, and Vinnie Colaiuta. Russ Kunkel is another one of my favourite drummers, who is probably in style totally different from Vinnie Colaiuta and Terry Bozzio. Dave Weckl is another one, but if you get back to Russ Kunkel played with James Taylor. He played on a ton of Elektra records, and he has the ability to just play a groove, and 3 minutes later it will be the same groove with feel, and he won't have done one single drum fill, but what he did do was the right thing. So Russ Kunkel with people like James Taylor, Ry Cooder, people like that. They just have the feel. They're white drummers with black feel, soul feel, and they don't get in the way. But there's an awful lot of.
I've seen Vinny drum. I went to when he was playing with Sting.
Oh yeah.
And
Vinny Colaiuta,
yeah,
that's right.
yeah, amazing.
I mean, if you go back a bit further and go into the late 50s, early 60s, people like Earl Palmer, who is a fantastic drummer. He started out as a tap dancer when he was 14, taught himself to play drums, taught himself to read music, played for a ton of people. The most famous, or his best work for me, was with Little Richard. It's just a wonderful thing to listen to, you know, just absolutely wonderful. In terms of rock and roll, Earl Palmer has just got it nailed, you know. He also went on to play all the Looney Tunes stuff. He said it was the hardest thing he ever had to read. But so you know, you can start out as a tap dancer and end up as a brilliant drummer.
It's rhythm, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, so what I would like to ask you is, obviously, you know me. You know that I've been playing for a couple of years now,
Yeah.
But what advice would you give to me or someone else that's starting out in the world of drumming, and just hit me with some advice, put some pearls of wisdom.
Well, my favourite piece of advice to you is give it 50 years of hard work.
You do say that.
Which
I'll be 90 and
never
Rocky.
Yeah, but it never goes down well with anybody. You know, if anyone had said to me 50 years ago, give it 50 years of hard work, I wouldn't have been very happy about that. But having given it 50 years of hard work, it's a very antisocial instrument, drums. They're difficult to practice. Acoustic drums, unless your parents have got a big house in a big detached house. So you can use electronic drums or drum pads, but it's a strange instrument to want to play. But the main thing is, while you're playing with somebody, is to listen to what's going on all around you and try and make it work. Make everybody play to you, which means you've got to have confidence in what you're doing.
Yeah.
You've got to lay it down, and this is the speed and this is the feel, and make people play to you. At the same time, listen to what's going on and make it all work, fit in with everyone, but make them play to you. It's a difficult balance, but that's what you've got to do.
Oh, that is great. Howard, you're my first interview. I can't thank you enough. I've heard about things that we haven't ever spoken about when we normally see each other. Thank you very much, Howard.
It's been a great pleasure, Laura. Put it there.
Put it there. Rock and roll. Howard Tibble in the house. Respect. Sounds very Ali G, doesn't it?